Well, hey guys, welcome back to the studio. Gangland Wire, Gary Jenkins, retired Kansas City Police Intelligence Detective here. If you didn't know, if you're new to the show, anyhow, we got another show for you. I do. Me alone, no experts out there, just me. I'm the expert on this one. James Jimmy I, or Jimmy I for Ice Pick, Inendino. That's a hard one to say, Inendino. He's been long regarded. He was a loyal member of the Chicago outfit, and he really, in the outfit, in the end, he was one of their top figures. He was never a big time boss. I think he was the capo down in Cicero, which is, where it all started in Chicago. He died of natural causes last year in 2023. So I was noodling around. I noticed some people did some stuff on him. I was looking for some of these Chicago guys like that, which I think are really interesting. I did one on Chucky Nicoletti recently. When I was noodling around, I found out that it looked like Harry Aileman's the one that killed Chucky, typewriter Nicoletti. And as far as his nickname, Nicoletti, I had a guy say that he had some letters tattooed on him that looked like a typewriter, is why they called him the typewriter. I don't know. Anyhow, Jimmy Ice Pick, when he died, a local TV station up there in Chicago released a bulletin that had some FBI files that showed that indicated he had been an informant. They even had an informant number 6931C. They had some of those documents I found that where that I team had released it. It's on YouTube if you want to try to find it, where they had copies of documents where he told them some things, mainly about truck hijacking. And this was back in the late 1960s. And, he started out as a Cicero guy early on in his very earliest years. He died at age 80. So he's seen the entire span practically from Capone or Nitti all the way up to whoever's, Jimmy Marcello or whoever, John No Nose DeFranzo and Solly De Laurentiis and people like that. But they said that he had worked in between March and May 65 to 69. And then again, there's some reports that indicated he had done some informant between 1974 and 1975, May and March of 74 to 75. And there they gave another number. Since it indicates he started in the 60s, he probably wasn't whistled in, as Frank Culata called it. He was probably what you would call an associate and not a blood oath member. And at some point in time, I think when IUPA took over, they started really doing the oath. But you knew, as Culata said, you knew if somebody was what you would call a member if they were whistled in, just by their reputation and how they carried themselves and what other people said about them. Now, supposedly he gave him information about commercial trucking thefts. I got a feeling there's more to this story, if he really gave him any decent information or not. John Binder, who's a real knowledgeable expert and source, I think he's got a pretty well-known book called The Capone Beer Wars. They interviewed him, the TV people interviewed him, and he said, I doubt that the outfit knew that he was an informant. There is proof, he says, he claims, because there are these FBI documents, but, I'm not sure. They did assign him a number. I don't know. Here would be what I might say. He one of several things. One, he probably did talked to an FBI agent who then went back and said, hey, I turned Jimmy I, and they gave him a number. He might have been giving up some information on some rivals. He might have been giving up some drug information, something that wasn't going to hurt anybody, that meant anything to anybody, because these guys do that kind of stuff. Hell, those drug people do that all the time to take out the competition. So he might have been taking out some competition. Sometimes I've heard of these guys. I think I'll go back to Luciano when he set up Vito Genovese on a narcotics charge, supposedly, to get him out of the way for a while. So, they're not above that. It beats killing them and just get somebody to lie on them and get them set up. So, it might have been something like that. An FBI agent might fudge a little bit, wanting to be a big man and have, an informant, deep throat informant in the outfit. He might fudge this a little bit. You never know. It's not a straight out long-term snitching operation, I would sure. So let's go back and take a look at Jimmy I, or Jimmy Inendino. He will become a blood oath member of the family, according to John Binder, and I know he did. Just the fact that he'll end up being the capo of Cicero area himself. And he reported to Sally D. De Laurentiis, who is, when he died, was the current boss of the outfit. Here's an interesting thing: is Sally D. left a comment on his memorial book. At least it looks like it was him, that says, "Thank you so much for what you did for the boys. I'm having 3 trees planted in memory of you." So I don't know, man. He made his name. Let's go back. How did he make his name? He made his name in the 70s, particularly. He was a founding member, or one of the early guys in the Taylor Street Crew's Wild Bunch, which got to be pretty famous, very notorious enforcement team for the outfit. And home invasion squads, a home invasion team, and hit squad. This was under Joe Ferriola, who was a Cicero guy and was a capo of Cicero at the time. And these guys hung around the Survivors Social Club on Taylor Street. They call them the Taylor Street Crew also. They had Jimmy Inendino, Harry the Hook Aileman, notorious hitman. Butch Praticelli, Jerry the Hand Scalise. They call him the Hand, I guess, because one hand was gone. He's the guy that, with his rap partner, his fall partner, Art Rachel, is also called the Brain, robbed the jewelry store and got the real famous, the Marlboro Diamond, and hid it. And they even got arrested when they first got back to the United States, but they had already mailed that diamond off somewhere else and nobody ever found it. And Jerry Scarpelli will actually start to inform, and then they'll find him hung in the Cook County Jail. And I suppose that, I think it was ruled a suicide, but they say Frank the German Swiss was in the jail at that same time. So I don't know. Joe Ferriola was a bad man. A long time. He would go clear back under Capone and Accardo and those people. Jimmy Inendino will follow him. I think I said this before, that he will eventually take over the rackets in Cicero himself. Now, Joe Ferriola used the Wild Bunch to take out competition, to extort money from people, and to do murders. Joe Ferriola decided he was going to line up all the bookies just like Capone did the speakeasies in Chicago. They were going to have to pay him a tribute. And he was, at the time, I read this one thing that I thought was interesting. I've never heard this term, and it was a pretty knowledgeable guy that said it. He was known as the Chinaman for the Wild Bunch. If you needed something done by the Wild Bunch, you went to see Joe Ferriola. Jimmy Inendino, he was the only one of that Wild Bunch that ends up dying a natural death late in life. Although I guess Jerry Scalise, if he's still alive, died a natural death, but he pretty much was in the penitentiary tour up to close to the end of his life. Now, Jimmy maybe Ice Pick, he was known to be able to strong arm deadbeat loan sharks. He'd been a truck hijacker. He'd been a truck hijacker who was involved in the chop shop wars, or a lot of guys got killed in the chop shop wars. And he was just an all around Chicago heavy. But his expertise was strong arm and deadbeat loan shark victims or bookies who were behind on their tribute or owed money to somebody. So now check out of this wiretap I found online of him, Jimmy I, in action.
Hello? Mike? Yes? Is that motherfucker? Yeah, let me talk to him. Chuck, I'm gonna tell you something. Here, Jim. You have that fucking 200 in my hands tomorrow. If you ain't got the 200 in my fucking hands tomorrow, you understand me? You better stay there, because I'll tell you, you've reached the end of the line with me, my friend. You have no more time, and no more bullshit, and no more outs. By tomorrow night, 6 o'clock, you have that 200 in this joint. Believe me, kid. And every Friday from here on in, You have what you're supposed to have in this joint. If we don't see it tomorrow by 6 o'clock, you don't owe nobody nothing. You understand? You have it here by 6 o'clock tomorrow night. Or, believe me when I tell you, and I promise you this. Believe me, I promise you. I'll break every fucking bone in your body before I go to jail. Every fucking bone in your body. I swear to my kids. You understand? All right, sir. Okay. Bye-bye. Bye.
I couldn't figure out who Chuck was. I don't know, does anybody know who Chuck could have been? I couldn't figure that out. But Chuck was in big trouble, and I don't know whatever happened to him. Either he got the money or he left town, or maybe he ended up dead. I would imagine we'd probably know a lot more about it if he ended up dead. You'll notice that Jimmy I did not threaten murder. He only threatened to break all the bones in his body. And, a dead man can't pay a debt. What are you going to do? Like hurt him a little bit and then more likely keep him working. And you maybe have to keep messing with him, but eventually you're going to keep getting some money out of him. Now here's a story, a good example, and Jimmy I was involved with this. A good example of the wild bunch at work, and particularly Harry Aileman. I don't always take everybody on everything. So there was a guy, a Chicago cop or ex-cop by this time, named Frank Rizza. Frank Rizza had gotten caught trying to buy some cocaine in Mexico, and he probably bashed it. Somehow he got out of it. He's down in Mexico. He got out, but the Mexican authorities called the Chicago PD, and he got fired. So he'd already kind of launched into a small bookmaking business, so now he just moves on into the bookmaking business bigger time. In 1975, Harry Aileman, sent by Joe Ferriola to line him up as one of their bookmakers, and took fellow Taylor Street crew member Jimmy I, or Jimmy Inendino, along. Rizza will later testify to this. That's how we know this. He said he met him at a restaurant, and Inendino and Harry Aileman sat across the table from him in a booth, and he said they just stared at him with these cold, black, lifeless, dead eyes, just stared at him, looked him up and down and just stared at him and tried to intimidate him. Then they started, checking him out, making sure he wasn't wired up, because after all, the guy had been a cop. He would know about that. And Rizza will report that Aileman began this conversation with, we're organized Chicago, all the bookmakers, just like the speakeasies were organized by Capone. That's exactly what Ferriola wants to do. And, you're going to be our guy. You're going to be one of our guys, and you're going to start paying us a piece of your action. Rizza knew better than to argue. As a matter of fact, he kind of joined in with them, and he started bird dogging for other bookies that they didn't know about. He did try to worm his way out of this because he had some other outfit connections. But let me tell you how these guys work. Here's how they work. He knew Angelo La Pietra, who had the Chinatown crew. Angelo La Pietra, he went to him, and Angelo says, well, those are bad guys. He said, maybe I can help you with it. He said, give me, like $5,000, several $1,000s. Give me this money. So he takes, dutifully, puts it in the brown paper bag and takes it to Angelo, the hook, La Pietra, and he's supposed to deliver it to Harry Aileman and negotiate some kind of a deal. Well, the deal he negotiated was that Aileman was going to be partners in Rizza's bookmaking scheme. And that's how he ends up really throwing in with Aileman and his schemes and his crew in a way. He doesn't become, a member of the hit squad or a member of the Wild Bunch, but he starts doing stuff with and for Harry Aileman and Jimmy I. He had to pay the outfit. He had to pay a tribute to the outfit of 50% of his winnings. But in return, now this is interesting, in return, the outfit or Aileman will make sure that all his losses are covered. So if he has a losing week, then, he doesn't cost him anything. If he wins, if he comes out $1,000 ahead in a week, he's got to pay them $500. Kind of an interesting little thing. But, to get all your losses covered, if you have one really bad week, it can wipe out a bookie. So, that's certain insurance that you're buying in that. also wanted RZA to pay him personally $1,000 a month in a street, what he called a street tax. So that's his mob guys, Angelo LaPietra took him for a bunch of money. Then, he ended up making the deal that he could have just made without LaPietra. Anyhow, that's Frank RZA was not the sharpest tool in the toolbox, I would say. So he starts bird dogging. As I said before, he starts bird dogging for other bookies that aren't part of Harry Edelman's network or Joe Ferriola's network by extension. Met with him. They met almost every day. And he told him about a guy, RZA told him about a guy, a Peckerwood named Anthony Reitlinger, who was a really big time bookie and probably running as much as $100,000 a month. Total, that would not be winning, but as much as $100,000 a month of bets that he was taking and paying or winning. And of course, the outfit, they want a piece of that. They want that action. RZA goes to him. Element says, go to him, tell him the deal. RZA reports back and says, well, Reitlinger said, if I ain't never paying any street tax. I'm doing all this work. I'm taking all the risk. I'm not paying. RZA will testify that Harry Edelman said, I'll kill that MF. RZA said he went back because he knew Reitlinger and begged him to change his mind. But the more he begged him, the more Reitlinger dug in his heels. He just would not pay, RZA testified. He just was not interested and would not pay. RZA also testifies that Edelman told him, he says, he's a dead man. Reitlinger, if he ain't coming in, he's a dead man. Just forget about it. He's a dead man. RZA, what's he going to do? He just goes on. And some of these daily meetings with Edelman was really upfront with RZA because he testifies that over the next few weeks, pretty soon Edelman says, I'm going to kill him on Halloween because I can wear a mask and it won't attack. Do that over again. I can wear a mask. He told him, he said, I can wear a mask and it won't attract much attention on Halloween. It's kind of like today, these guys are still wearing these damn hoodies with a COVID mask on them. I mean, that's still quite common. I know you've seen that. If you live in a big city, you see that downtown, especially all the time, these young guys. A few weeks later, it's Halloween. Right after Halloween, RZA's at home watching TV and he sees that Reitlinger's been killed, shot down on the street. Then he claims that Harry Edelman calls him later on and says, we killed that son of a bitch. I told you we'd kill that guy. Now, I don't know. I don't believe that. I just can't believe he would do that. That's like too much. But RZA's obviously trying to get in good with some cops here, some FBI agents. Now, here's what happened. The night he died, he went to Mama Luna's on the northwest side. I think you guys, if you're from Chicago and the more central part of the city, you know the outfit. Mama Luna's is a pretty famous restaurant, 5109 West Fullerton Avenue. He had gone to the police about Alleman, but what are they going to do? They're not going to send anybody to go sit with him all the time. He told his daughter once if anything happened to him, she should go to her grandmother immediately. And he left her at home that night. It was kind of weird. The people later in the restaurant said that he came inside and he kind of looked around. He looked back out the front window, make sure there wasn't anybody right behind him, apparently, like he was looking for somebody. And finally, just sat down and in a booth and by the window and started looking at the menu and said a little bit later, during his dinner, a red Mercury Montego pulled up, parked on the curb right in front. Two men with e-masks came out slowly and deliberately. Now, this is kind of strange, but this is Harry Edelman. This was his MO. Pull up close by in a car and get out and deliberately, slowly walk to the guy. And he walked in the restaurant, and Reitlinger apparently had his nose buried in the menu or something because he didn't see it until they were inside. And once they got inside, they quickly got to the booth. One guy shoved him back down as he tried to jump up. The other guy pointed a 30 caliber carbine. Now this would be probably a World War II surplus back in the 60s, probably gone by later part of the 70s. We used to be able to find these things, these 30 caliber carbines that had been in the World War II M1 carbines all over the place. And it's not too long a gun. It's, multiple rounds. It's semi-automatic, and really it's like the AR-15 of its time. It'll knock you down and it'll kill you. Fired 4 times into his chest, and that's it. 4 of those in your chest, and you're a dead man. And customers are diving for cover, and gunpowder's filling the air, blood squirting all over the place. It was quite a scene. And then the second guy had a shotgun, and he held it up to his head and fired twice. I mean, they wanted to make sure Reitlander was dead. They needed to make an example out of him, too. They knew everybody would be talking about this hit. Witnesses will say these 2 guys slowly and deliberately turned around and walk out, get in their Montego, and slowly drive away. They didn't jump in and peel out and go flying away like somebody was hot on their tail. There's a cool heads here. And that's Harry Edelman and Jimmy Inendino. Bad dude. He was also, I said he was a hijacker of trucks, I think. He was a killer during the chop shop wars when their outfit was trying to take over all the chop shops and the whole stolen car racket, and may have been one of the killers of Jimmy the Mama Couture, who was killed over in the Patch. Back to that informant thing. That's, he's going to go in and out. He's going to end up being the capo down in Cicero, gets involved in the deal where they're paying off policemen, they're bribing city officials in Cicero, they're extorting money, they're getting money embezzled. The city treasury in Cicero ends up getting like a 20-year sentence off of that deal. So he wasn't too much of an informant, was he? That he takes a hit on that. I don't know. I think that it's kind of like cartel guys. If he did any informant, it was to get rid of competition or drug people, get rid of competition and pump the cops up so the cops won't look at their operation. They'll be looking at other operations. You kind of like, if a guy gives you information, you don't really exert a lot of energy working on him and keep you busy on somebody else. So that's kind of a short down and dirty story of Jimmy Inendino, the last of the Wild Bunch, the one who died out of prison of natural causes and was still in the outfit when he died. Weird story that came out about him being an informant. I don't know. I guess, and I don't know how they got that reports. They figured out that he was that number because all they had was a number, and then they claimed he was that number. So, I don't know. More will be revealed if somebody ever cares enough to go into it. I don't. He's dead and gone. Well, go back to New York, maybe next week. I don't know. Anyhow, thanks a lot, guys. Don't forget, I got my book back over there. In my book, you go on to get the Kindle version. So it's cheaper than the hardcover, and you can actually listen to a lot of the wiretaps that we recorded here in Kansas City between here and Las Vegas about the skimming from Las Vegas casinos. It's a real story behind the movie Casino. And of course, I got my story Gangland Wire about mob wars in Kansas City and Brothers Against Brothers, the Savella Sparrow War. Both they're like $1.99 rentals on Amazon. I've got the last documentary I did. I couldn't get it up on Amazon. They changed the rules where I had to have it in a major film festival, and that's like you can spend $1,000 and still not getting a film festival, and they charge you like $200 or $300 each time you apply. So I just decided, it's not worth it. I don't know. I just pooped down on these documentaries by then. But I got that out there, and I got all kinds of stuff. Got stuff for sale, and I appreciate y'all tuning in. I really appreciate all the comments you make on the YouTube channel. The YouTube channel has got, I don't know how many it's got now, 16,000, maybe almost 16,000 subscribers. And they, a lot of good conversations and a lot of information on that. And the YouTube, the podcast group, Gangland Wire, can't figure out how to get into the group because I made it a private group, had too much scammers on there. So I made it private. Get hold of me and I'll make sure you get an invite if you're on Facebook. And Don't forget, I like to ride motorcycles, so watch out for motorcycles when you're out there on the streets. And if you have a problem with PTSD, go to the VA website and get that hotline number. Got a problem with drugs or alcohol, which goes along with PTSD, whether you've been in the service or not, you can get hold of Angelo Ruggiano, Fat Andy's son, and he's a drug and alcohol counselor down in Florida. He's got a hotline number on his thing, on his website, YouTube page one. Did you see the Mafia Spies yet? I know it's on Paramount Plus. It'll be out by the time this out. I interviewed that guy, and I'll have that interview out probably by maybe just a week or so before I put this one out. Chicago one day and Chicago the next day. But be curious about that, whether it's any good or not. It sounds interesting. It's going to be all about how Giancana and Johnny Rosselli tried to kill Castro for the Secret Service, or I mean for the CIA and that whole scheme there. And they really get into JFK a little bit, but not a lot. So thanks a lot, guys. A lot, guys.